Few, if any, prospects have had a more celebrated debut than Jabari Smith. The Auburn freshman forward entered the season as a likely one and done and nearly consensus lottery pick, but after his hot start, Smith is rocketing up draft boards and even topping some. Smith has been a two-way weapon who is knocking down shots, making smart passes, and playing incredible defense. Defensive footwork is an absolute necessity to be a great defender. Without it, players have no balance, can't keep up, and can't recover. Thankfully for Jabari Smith, his defensive footwork has been incredibly impressive. This episode will be diving into what makes Jabari Smith's defensive footwork so special. At 6'10", 220 pounds, Smith will likely play most of his NBA career as a power forward. However, with the ever-expanding range of NBA offenses and proclivity of the pick and roll, he will be dragged to the perimeter consistently. Teams will initially view this as a mismatch, but they'll quickly realize how wrong they were. What immediately stands out with his defense is his stance. We frequently see guards who are defensive savants get low in their stance on the perimeter, but it is much rarer for forwards. Most forwards tend to bend at the waist, which simulates a proper defensive stance, when in reality, they are putting themselves in a worse position. Smith, however, has a wide, stable stance and bends his knees so much and so frequently that you'd think he just does wall sits all day. Most of his NBA career as a power forward. However, with the ever-expanding range of NBA offenses and proclivity of the pick and roll, he will be dragged to the perimeter consistently. Teams will initially view this as a mismatch, but they'll quickly realize how wrong they were. What immediately stands out with his defense is his stance. We frequently see guards who are defensive savants get low in their stance on the perimeter, but it is much rarer for forwards. Most forwards tend to bend at the waist, which simulates a proper defensive stance, when in reality, they are putting themselves in a worse position. Smith, however, has a wide, stable stance and bends his knees so much and so frequently that you'd think he just does wall sits all day. When forwards venture out to the logo to defend, it typically ends poorly for them. Here, Smith is defending a smaller opponent who theoretically should be able to blow past him. Being the defensive savant that he is, though, Smith gets low in his stance and prepares to stalk his prey. As the ball handler makes his move, Smith stays with him step for step, never crosses his feet, and stays in that low stance to keep his balance. This time, as the point guard circles to the top of the arc, Smith utilizes the same pristine footwork we just saw. Again, Smith gladly switches on the smaller guard without hesitation or an ounce of concern. This ball handler is slightly quicker though, so to compensate, Smith makes a quarter turn of his hips to ensure that he will stay with the ball handler. This subtle move allows Smith to not cross his feet, which would jeopardize his balance, or entirely flip his hips and chase, which would make him susceptible to a step back. Smith continues to slide his feet and use his strength to utterly discourage the ball handler from even thinking about getting to the rim. Smith's stellar footwork also makes him a highly effective off-ball defender. The focus almost always resides on weak side rim protection and off-ball rotations when it comes to off-ball defense. Those aspects are obviously important, but a defender's ability to close out is often slept on despite being a crucial skill. Smith's excellent footwork allows him to thrive as an off-ball defender because he can use his size to tag rollers and cutters in the lane and then recover to the perimeter without surrendering an open shot. As Smith closes out, he has both hands high, chops his feet, and sinks low in his stance. Smith is under control, appears to startle his opponent, and pokes the ball loose to force the turnover. Unfortunately, Smith's perimeter footwork isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There aren't glaring issues that will render him obsolete, but there is a significant area that he needs to improve going forward: his foot speed. I cannot emphasize enough that I'm well aware I am nitpicking. However, to truly build the complete picture of these prospects and dive as deep as possible into their skill sets, it is a necessary evil. Despite having nearly flawless fundamentals with his stance and footwork, Smith can be slow to react to an initial move and is susceptible to getting beat initially. This isn't an insurmountable flaw, but it will limit his defensive versatility in the NBA if not improved. Here we see Smith get blown past by someone we saw him previously stifle because his slow foot speed cannot compensate for his momentary lapse and his typical idyllic commitment to fundamentals. Instead of the controlled disruptive closeout we previously saw, Smith closes out with a two-footed hop and lands in a square stance. This gives the ball handler an easy opening to attack. leaving Smith in a disadvantageous position. Smith is bailed out by his teammate who deters the ball handler from getting an easy layup. Since Smith treats his opponents as prey in the jungle, he continues his pursuit, re-implements his brilliant footwork, and forces the pass out of the lane. This time, Smith is closer to his man on the closeout, which allows him to use his strength to disrupt the ball handler and not fall victim to the hop closeout. As Smith closes out, he quickly reacts to the potential drive and keeps his balance because of his strong base. Unfortunately, Smith bites enough on the crossover by taking the extra step with his right foot, which opens a lane for the ball handler. Smith is now out of position and doesn't have the foot speed to recover and cut off the drive. However, Smith continues his impressive defensive work rate to recover and disrupt the shot while also getting at-rim help from Kessler. When I first saw this possession, my jaw dropped at Smith's defensive absurdity. He was brilliant for 90% of the play. Initially, Smith artfully dodges the screen in the DHO, slides his feet, and cuts off the ball handler's drive at the elbow. Smith continues the intense pressure and even pokes the ball loose. This is where things take a turn though. Overhyped on his defensive oppression, Smith continues to press the ball handler despite being at the logo with 5 seconds left on the shot clock. I love the intensity and desire to completely neuter his opponents, but Smith has to be more aware. Instead of forcing a 30-foot heave, Smith's pressing exposes his slower foot speed and allows his man to turn the corner. Luckily for Smith, he is backed by a premier rim protector, or else an inspiring individual effort would have become a youthful blunder. Even though Smith is occasionally slow to react on a first move, he rarely surrenders a play. His tenacious motor and commitment to fundamentals combined with his superior physical gifts allow him to recover on nearly every play. Here, Smith is in perfect defensive stance with a high hand, wide stance, and bent knees. Switched on to the opposing point guard, though, isn't ideal for most power forwards. The ball handler utilizes a quick rip through and attacks Smith's high foot. Smith is slow to flip his hips and should in essence be beaten. However, once Smith flips his hips, he tracks the ball handler and gets a strong contest on the mid-range pull-up. The defensive footwork concerns with Smith aren't overwhelming by any means. They arise from diving into the minutiae and figuring out where he can improve to reach the absolute apex of his abilities. Most power forwards can't hold a candle to Smith's defensive footwork and his perimeter defensive upside. They are either too small to deter drives and hold their own in the paint, or too slow to switch everything. Jabari Smith has the potential to be one of the most versatile defenders in the NBA. His commitment to and execution of fundamentals puts him in rarefied air for prospects of his age and build. If Smith continues to improve his foot speed and hip mobility to combine with his near-perfect footwork and defensive stance, he could turn into one of the best defenders in the NBA.